Good morning, guys. Good morning. Before we go straight negative, I want to talk about the bottom of the sixth inning at least because it felt like for a moment the Orioles were officially back. Really, it started in the top of the sixth inning because Brandon Young was amazing yesterday for through 5 innings, and then he just ran into third time through the lineup. Mets, whatever, they smashed the ball a handful of times. We're now down 2-1, but Soto comes in, gets the last two outs, doesn't give up any more runs. And then the bottom of the sixth inning is like the best inning the Orioles have had all season. Just you could just feel it. It was awesome. O'Hearn, Laureano, they deliver. They get the bases loaded. We're up 6-2 or whatever it is at that point. 5-2. We add 1-1 to make it 6-2, and you just feel like, man, it really is. We're back. Start glancing at the schedule. Start looking at pitching matchups for tomorrow, and then yeah, if we're gonna go negative, I don't even know if the game is at the top of my mind this morning because I went straight to the trade deadline. Like I couldn't help myself because I was thinking about what Gunnar said yesterday and what I was gonna do my pod on because Gunnar, basically was like, if you didn't see the quote, it was I want to be buyers at the deadline. There's no reason why we can't be buyers at the deadline. And I think everybody felt that way after the sweep in Atlanta. And just you want to feel that way. It's still early July, and then they're up 6-2. It's Hawaiian shirt night. It just felt like, I don't know, Ben McDonald's a blast to listen to. It just felt like a very good night. And now I'm like, uh, not that we can't still be buyers, not that the season really is over, but if you go to the dark side of what being a seller looks like, I don't know if you're getting any value unless you throw in guys that the fans are going to really be upset about. Because if you just go through the list, it's not very attractive for the rest of the league. From a pitching standpoint, you're offering Sagano. I don't think anybody really wants him. Then you factor in the contract, and are the Orioles eating some of this money, or is the rest? How is that going to work? Whether it's Sagano and Eflin, now I imagine Eflin's going to pitch at least once, maybe twice before the deadline, but his value is gone way down. And Charlie Morton, while his value has gone way up over the past, it's been about 8, 9 starts now. It's the same thing as Sagano, where a team might want him, but they don't want to pay him. So what? And they don't really want to give up anything for him besides something that wouldn't materialize for a few years. So I guess you dump those guys if you can, but I don't know if you can without eating the salary. So that just puts you in a bind, and then you just don't have enough pitchers. So do you really trade those guys? I don't know. You go to the bullpen, and Sir Anthony has value. I imagine at this point he has similar value that he had last year when the Orioles acquired him. But it would feel like kind of a waste to trade him because you're going to need a bullpen arm anyway, and you already traded for him. So I don't know. It would be surprising to trade him. And then same thing with Soto, and you have an extra year of eligibility with Soto. So I don't know if they're commanding such a return that the Orioles would then trade them and then have to replace them in the offseason anyway. I imagine that Elias won't do that. And then you keep going down the list, and you're like, I don't know. Kittredge, he's got an option for next year. It's kind of the same thing. Like he might have a little bit more value than Dominguez, maybe. I don't know. His numbers aren't as good, but his pedigree is a little bit better. But he's older, and you're just not going to get much for these guys. Like they're just not top of the line guys, and you're really going to need bullpen arms not only down the stretch, but you're going to need them for next year. So you go through the rest of the pitching, and there's just nothing there after that. So Kramer's got the most value. I don't think he gets traded. We have control over him for a couple of years. He's affordable, and that's pretty much the end of it. Then you go to the hitters. I'll circle back to Batista in a minute, but when you go to the hitters, O'Hearn's got the most value. I get it, but he's only a platoon guy, and he's most likely a DH guy for a contending team. He can play at first base, and he can bat against righties, and he's got value, but he's also 32 on an expiring contract, and you're just not going to get the type of value for him that, frankly, myself and I think reasonable Oriole fans are like, can't we just pay him 40, 50, $60 million and keep him here for a few years? Now that we have new ownership and money shouldn't be such an impediment to success. That would be great because his value is I mean, he's a nice piece to add if you're a contending team, but I don't think you're going to get the return, and I think you're better off just keeping him. He's a clubhouse guy, and especially with Mountcastle's injury history, unless they just want to give the keys to Kobe Mayo and have him be the everyday first baseman and punt on O'Hearn, I would just keep him. But I imagine they'll trade him if they're going to be sellers. That's the critical piece right there that I think really could mess up the clubhouse. I really think you got to pay somebody at some point, and he's the perfect guy to pay. Outside of him, you have Mullins, who is a defensive center fielder. Again, probably not going to bat him against lefties if you're a contending team. I get that the Orioles are probably going to move on from him, so I could see Mullins being traded. Unfortunately, if you're going to turn in the sellers, you're just probably not going to get very much from him for him. So it might feel like, man, I kind of just wish we kept him, especially if you're a big fan of his. But Cowser seems capable of center field, and if they're going to let Kerstead have another crack at this thing, they just don't have space, and they got Beavers down there. They're going to have Bradfield come up, so Mullins does feel like the odd guy out. It's felt like that for a little bit, and I imagine he would get traded, but I don't think you're getting a ton back for him. And then, yeah, it all circles back to me. The depressing thing is all these guys that we mentioned, Mullins, O'Hearn, and then the pitchers, because there's nobody else. You go through the list. There's just nobody else. Sanchez is hurt. Was what they say 8 to 10 weeks yesterday, so you can't trade him. Same thing with Mateo, can't trade him. Kerstead, whether or not you even wanted to trade him, he's untradeable because his value has never been. Oops, sorry, he's never been this low. And Mayo, they seem invested in him. He would be the piece to trade if we were, buyers at the deadline. But you go through the rest of the list, and there's just nobody there. The only other person would be Laureano that I forgot because you can't trade O'Neill because that's the worst contract I can even imagine. But whatever, I could beat the dead horse on that one. Laureano, we have the option for him for next year. You may as well just keep him, but I could see them trading him. So it's just it. But again, you're not going to get a ton for him. His pedigree is not going to. His pedigree at his age, you're just not going to get a ton for him. Nobody's going to plug him in as their everyday outfielder. I just don't see it that way. Maybe he plays. Yeah, for the Orioles, he could play every day, but for a contending team, trust me, you start scanning the landscape here, and the only guy that the Orioles have that's a blue chip guy that they can create a real bidding war, like a real bidding war and get a real return is the Mountain. It's Batista. And if they do that, there's a level of anger if O'Hearn gets moved. Well, actually, we'll say like Laureano's probably here, O'Hearn's here, and Batista. It's like you trade Batista and you're going to lose a lot of fans. You're going to get a lot of bad press. But if you're truly trying to get value and dump some of these contracts, that's the trade. You call the Dodgers, you call the Padres, you call the Cubs, the Tigers, whatever it is. Everybody wants Batista. Whether you plugged him in as your closer or the setup guy, everybody's going to want Batista, especially when you can rest them down the stretch if you're a contending team. And the Orioles, if they wanted to be cheap, if this was the old regime, this is what I assume they would do. They would attach, whether it's Sagano or Morton or whatever, try to get off O'Neill if they could, and package those guys with Batista. And that's how you save some money and you get some prospects, because without that, the Orioles, they went from being, and you just got to think about the dynamics of the relationships with the GMs. Elias, for the past couple of years, was the guy that had all the leverage, right? I got Jackson, I got Kerstead, I got Cowser, I got Gunnar, I got Adley, and I'm not trading any of them. Grayson, Brett, you can't have any of my best players. And now let's try to talk. And what did it produce? We already, obviously we've talked about beating a dead horse, right? We didn't get the job done, didn't win any playoff games. And now he's at the mercy of being on the opposite side, being like, hey, we don't want any of your players this time. Instead of you saying you don't want to give up your players, yeah, we know you're not giving up those players, and fine, we've already crossed that bridge, but we don't want Morton and Sagano and Mullins, and we don't really want those guys. If we're going to take them, we're going to give you very little back. You're going to have to pay for it. and, kick rocks. If you don't want to do it, you're just going to lose those guys at the end of the year anyway. You have no leverage. The only leverage you have is if you give me Batista. And you give me Batista, then we can talk. So if the Orioles are going to be sellers and Elias wants to actually do something and really have the fans hate him, he'll get rid of Batista. If he really wants the fans to continue to just be mad at him, he can get rid of O'Hearn and Laureano. And I don't think he can get rid of the pitchers without paying for it. So if he wants to do that, I don't even know what the point is. Like, at that point, you're like, hey, if we're 8, 9, 10 games under 500 still, just keep Morton and Sagano and Eflin and whatever. Maybe we'll get hot in August or September or whatever, December. Who knows? They'll extend the season. This team is so freaking frustrating. Like, if you just you can't help yourself. They reel you back in, and then it's bad. It's man, you feel a certain type of way after a game like last night, just emotionally draining. I guess if they win tonight, it's not that big of a deal in the scheme of things, right? It's only one game. And if they win tonight, it'd be a nice, oh boy, it'd be a nice, I'm trying to double check who's pitching. It'd be a nice, whatchamacallit, sign that, maybe they're not dead yet, because that's a heartbreaking loss to come back from that. They did that after they lost the 8-0 game to Tampa. Who do they got tonight? Sagano against Peterson, the lefty. Oh, Lord. Well, we'll see what kind of lineup they put out there. Better include Gunnar and better include Jackson. Although last night, Westberg, Gunnar, and O'Hearn had the chance in the 10th inning. Like, yeah, Baker gave up the 2 homers, but all things being equal, the Mets got their 1 run as Cano got out of it in the 10th, and the Orioles had their best hitters come up and couldn't get it done. So just sucked. Hopefully they win the night. And yeah, I'm going to do MLB recap here either at the end of the weekend or at the beginning of next week once we get ready for the All-Star break. So, all right, getting out of here. But yeah, I didn't want to be super negative, Dave. But if they want to trade these guys, I hope they do what Gunnar said. Just keep the team at this point. Maybe they'll get hot as long as they don't get 15 games under 500. If they're just within striking distance, I don't know, let it just play out, because what's the worst that can happen? And if you're not going to get anything back, you can't trade Batista, and you got to pay O'Hearn. And Laureano is now everybody's favorite player. And you can't trade Arias. We had him for another year. Don't trade him. So, all right, I'm getting out of here. Have a good day. It's hot. Have fun, whatever you're doing. See ya.